This video is sponsored by Knuckles0x, Crimson Manifesto, and Jelpy. We resume as it appears Bardock and one of his new house guests are in for imminent conflict, with the two parents in tandem sensing this and instructing their sons firmly to get inside and get washed up for breakfast, while they have a word with one another. As the trio of boys depart and are seemingly out of earshot, this sees the two adults free to have an adult conversation, with Bardock bluntly asking what's up, while Moley in turn audibly concludes that as she feared, he really is little more than a colonizing barbarian, and asking where the hell he gets off coming to her and her kid's planet and trampling it, only to turn around and play the hero, to try and raise her boy into little more than a warmonger like himself, accusing him of being no better than a lek. Bardock, however, to his credit, pleads his case pretty calmly, insisting it really isn't like that, and he ends up reminding her that he's the very Saiyan soldier that sacked off his own planet and raced to save his own hide and family. He's literally the last Saiyan in the universe capable of spouting off the old dogma of Saiyan pride, or holding even his own kids to that standard. An act of humility and vulnerability that the Cerulean is amply shocked by. Beyond that, Bardock shares the insight that he may not be from planet Cereal, but he has been a boy with a grudge so heavy it gnaws at the sanity, and she should take it for him that the kid's gonna seek out power no matter what as a result of that. Moley takes this to heart, but still feels it her responsibility in place of Granola's father to train and raise him as a Cerulean, so she wants to do just that, and thus she is currently taking umbrage with Bardock attempting to train him. Hence her so far trying very hard to even keep them in their same clothes, no matter how tattered they've quickly become from overuse. Bardock, in another showing of growing and maturing, is able to navigate this difficult conflict of interest, expressing himself clearly and earnestly, and even admitting that the way he's currently going about things, while he may not know what to call it exactly, is certainly not the sane way of doing things. This somewhat puts Moley's mind at ease, but she still has to know what way it is then. To which Bardock jokes is hopefully the one that leads to that bastard Frieza burning in hell one day. And in the end, that's all he cares about, hence his now having helped all the members of his family grow stronger, despite it being beneath him. Moley doesn't say it, but Bardock can tell the prospect sounds intriguing to her as well now, which is certainly understandable after what she's been through, though she flat out refuses his offer to join in sometime, but agrees she has every intention of growing stronger for her, Granola, and Monito's sake. So the duo instead decide to make a wager on Bardock's supposed redemption, as an alternative to officially getting in on the train in Bardock's weird boot camp like Granola has, as the green-haired femme fatale gets Bardock to agree to allow her to blow his head off whenever she feels for even a second he really is the villain who conquered Cereal. In turn, Bardock promises if she ever gets to the point she can actually do it, she'll be that much closer to being able to protect Granola from just about anything. This line of thought, though, ends up bringing up the topic of what Moley's occupation was on planet Cereal, since even though she is a good shot like all her people, and was able to graze him with a ki blast when they met, she's obviously no warrior. A bit gruffly, Moley reluctantly reveals she was a janitor, with expectations that Bardock will look down on this. However, he simply does not, like with Gine, having just as much respect for seemingly less important service classes as he does for that of soldiers. With his mother's blessing and own ambitions to motivate him, Granola officially joins in on morning training, deciding he needs to be able to better handle someone like Gas or Bardock, and so he is eager to learn how to fight up close a bit better in case he ever has to. While as a perk, he and Raditz can also get a lot of their aggression out this way, and Goku likes to join in too, all too happy for a second brother, even if neither he or Raditz are comfortable calling him that yet. This also sees them as a trio playing and sparring a lot more together throughout the day, a proper rival being just what Raditz needed in order to stop being as lazy as he has been in the past, since on top of Kakarot, who at least had the advantage of age on, there is now a literal middle child who'd actually prove himself ahead of the pack, or at least in terms of long-range attacking, accuracy, and control of his ki. In terms of everything else, however, Granola is sorely lacking, with Raditz once again taking glee in applying his analysis of the adopted space traveler, and for the sake of dumbing it down, analogizes his snipe shots as like those silly glass cannon builds on some of the games Bulma showed him, relying on dumping all your EXP into dexterity and luck in hopes of getting a critical hit like a scrub, meaning when it comes to a hand-to-hand fight with someone tougher, Granola is only about half as effective up close as he is from afar when going for a kill, in which case what he does isn't all that special after all, as anyone can get a lucky shot in. And seeing the wild-haired eldest son goof off that this is why one should always focus on speed and power above all else. He then enhances his body and fist with ki to charge in and pummel Granola with a hail of body blows, after bum rushing his way through a volley of ki blasts meant to keep him at bay, whilst Granola's own adaptation from last time they spar, and jumping back to reduce this flurry of power, is negated as Raditz cunningly ensnares his leg with his tail to trip and slam him, but Granola doggedly endures the harsh landing on his back and head for the sake of giving Raditz a taste of his own medicine, as he ends up digging his foot into his Saiyan host's stomach so he ends up just as prone as him. At which point, Kakarot, impatiently acting as the referee for this match and ready for his own go, calls an immediate pause to their spar, so they can allow one another to regain posture. But instead of helping one another up, as is their nature, the duo go for a double cross, giving this away to one another the split second before it happens, as Raditz can't help but make a dastardly grin, and Granola can't help but glare as if he means to ruin the Radish boy's hairline with a couple of holes, the two just as quickly taking a point-blank shot and an attempt at a low blow on one another respectively, only to narrowly miss by a slim margin as the two see red and begin to brawl on the ground without Goku's sanction. However, just as quickly as they begin, they are whacked by Goku as he called for the Nyoboy to extend. A powerful bonk to both heads being enough to quell this quarreling, as Goku looks quite pleased with his grandpa's gift. Even as Raditz and Granola grumble and turn their ire to him, assuredly preparing to give him a twin reminder of who the little bro here is. That is until Muesli and Gine call down the mountain for them to return for lunch that day, at which point Granola is reminded, asking Raditz and Kakarot about the weird names here on this planet, whilst the Saiyans are reminded of their strange little family tradition as they begin drafting up earthly names for Granola and Muesli on their way back home. Gine has decided to take Muesli and Granola into the city to get them clothes suitable for the Earth, something Muesli is appreciative of on multiple fronts, one being the reduction of the amount she'll have to wash and wear out her and Granola's traditional cerulean clothes. Another, because it's something different than stewing around Gohan's place and waiting on you-know-who to get back from work to take a shot at him. Granola, though, quickly begins to hate the experience, as the two mothers go to every store and browse every rack imaginable, realizing all too slowly why neither Kakarot nor Raditz wanted to tag along themselves. While in turn, both moms display both a remarkable patience with the boy and a remarkable ability to ignore his constant sighs and groans of boredom as they try out different outfits and even suggest different ones for him that he says he couldn't care less about ad nauseum, at least until they decide to pick him out something he gets the distinct feeling Raditz would tease him endlessly for wearing. Though the trip is fun, Muesli mourns the lack of green currently in selection, to which Gina displays a bit more Earth knowledge she got from Miss Pancha Breeze about the fashion trends here on Earth, as she states Earthlings like to roll their colors and styles around to match the seasons the world goes through. That apparently also makes it so their fashion is constantly evolving as well. Muesli finds this interesting like Gine did, determining to return next spring when more green garments should be available, while even musing about possibly learning to make her own clothing, since that could certainly be a way to pull her own weight. In the end, however, they do find outfits they're happy with. All the while, Gine and Muesli get some valuable one-on-one time to talk, with both noticing several things about the other that quickly endear them to each other. For Gine, she sees more of that kindred motherly spirit, of course, but also that Muesli bears a very similar mature, disciplined, and yet irreverent nature to her big sister figure in Sulliva, whom she still misses very dearly. While for Muesli, she more noticeably takes in just how different from most Saiyans Gine really is, even among her already variant family. Beyond that, she is also extremely kind and selfless to an almost sickening fault that makes one kind of instinctively want to watch her back for her. And finally and bluntly, she's drop-dead gorgeous and too good for a brute like Bardock. But there's no way she's saying all that out loud. Instead, this just adds fuel to her fire, seeing her clench a fist and look determined as they purchase their clothes and begin to head back home, with Muesli more heatedly resolving to get strong enough to beat Bardock, whilst Gine missing the point entirely seconds this, agreeing to join up with her for training since it would be really fun, and Granola gripes about everyone mustn't get on his target. One morning, as she awakes to the house mostly empty, Muesli decides to help Gine with preparation for the day's breakfast. And during this, the two make conversation about each other's children, even the question of if Muesli ever thought about having more, to which she admits she had. But as her and Granola's father were never officially together, and Granola was still a lot less independent before the raid on Planet Zero, it was more a passing thought of, say, a picture-perfect world than a real goal. In an attempt to be comforting about this, as she's already been scolded over apologizing for the actions of saying she had nothing to do with, or obviously no way of taming in the case of Bardock, Gine quips that now she's in the same boat as Bardock and her, though on her end she supposes it's more fair to say Muesli got two kids by surprise. Thankfully, Muesli has a sense of humor both in tune with Gine's sensibilities, yet jaded enough to find this both funny and hope-inducing, with her questioning if that's truly how Gine sees things, only to receive an immediate and heartfelt nod, at which point Muesli smiles back, deciding in that case she'd really like to get to know Raditz and Goku, while Gine's eyes sparkle with excitement as she gushes that she's been wanting to do the same with little Granola. And so it is that when half an hour later, Bardock once again returns with the trio of tired and lightly embarrassed alien boys trudging behind him, clearly disheveled and demoralized after another attempt at besting before he leaves for work. The two mothers already have plans for the day they'd like the trio to help out with once they finish eating. Muesli in that she contracts Gine's powerful kids into helping her clean some of the grosser and hard-to-reach areas of the home, all while gently moving fairly fragile yet large things like their appliances and such. In this shared effort, she ends up having another strong moment to bond with both Gine's children, mostly because Goku's just as cute as a button and reminds her of when Granola was a lot younger, while Raditz she has to all too begrudgingly agree with Bardock's assessment that he is very similar to the young man Granola began to grow into in her absence. Not exactly so, but enough to be noticeable, hence why they butted heads so often, which in turn makes her a bit more open to oversee some of his flaws, and even take some solace in their shared aversion to Bardock, while seemingly making a pact to team up in their efforts to take him down a peg one day, which Goku is also ambitiously wanting to join in on. The true value in this experience, though, is giving Muesli some solid proof that Bardock's kids are a lot more than just his kids, and that they really aren't being raised to emulate or glorify his past misdeeds, while it also solidifies Muesli in the minds of the Saiyan boys as another trusted elder they can seek guidance or even support from when needed. Meanwhile, as she's been told he's an excellent tracker and shot in his own right, Gine and Granola go hunting together, with this being an opportunity for Granola to not only show off his own talents, but also be shown around the mountain by his true master, the one who knows all the best hiding spots and goodies to be found on it, as by now she's spent so so much time hunting and communing with his wildlife, she seems to boast a kind of harmony with it, something he vastly appreciates for the spectacle of things even Bardock, Goku, and Raditz don't know about, as well as the advantage this intel could give him. Which reminds Gine, as she makes Granola promise to keep her hidden grotto secret from at least the latter, feeling his gluttony may see him put some of her favorite rare species around into extinction. Gine similarly ends up taking a shine to Granola, because he indeed reminds her of Raditz when he decides to be sweet and thoughtful, but also because despite that likening to Raditz, he's an honorable and earnest young man. Plus, in truth, the moment she saw him, she could tell he was a mama's boy, so the duo bond over the act of hunting, with Granola very quickly recognizing there is much he could learn from the master huntress, and very much unlike Raditz, ends up showing her very well-deserved respect and admiration consistently, while Gine is in turn a very encouraging and willing teacher, as the extra miles means a hunting partner is very much appreciated. That morning as Bardock arrives to work, things seem normal, with him greeting the other guards on duty who call him Chief Bruce, with his own usual lazy wave, while reporting to Dr. Brief's personal lab for their morning cup of coffee together and smoke break. However, this morning was different, in that Tights, the oldest Brief's daughter, was still on the premises, and by the looks of it, she was very nervously looking for him alongside Bulma, making her way over to him quickly with her little sister, where to her credit, she weaves a wonderful fib about possibly wanting to undergo some training of her own after seeing how strong Bulma got from it. Bardock of course sees this as a hassle, but also part of his job, and so decides to take a look and read Tight's key anyway. The act of the Saiyan guard scrutinizing her, making her nervous is all the more apparent, in contrast to Bulma's seeming sheer confusion with him. What this also does though is make him aware of Dr. Brief's location further inside the building, and that he is currently with a power he doesn't recognize, but of fairly notable size, like a bit over the average power of a Frieza soldier for example. At which point, he quickens his pace, waving Tights off that they'll discuss this later, and thus causing her to imminently fail in preventing this meeting, as she instead comes to terms with just explaining to Bardock that she has this alien friend who came to Earth looking for something, and when she met him at the party, she just so happened to let it slip to him because she really wanted some more info for her next book. But Bardock barely hears any of this as they enter the atrium, and find Dr. Brief speaking with a bug-eyed alien in strange garb. But on the bright side, he's definitely not Frieza Force. Upon seeing the alien, he announced himself as the super elite Galactic Patrol Officer Jocko, and aimed to blast her at Bardock's head, declaring him an evil Saiyan marauder of the Frieza Force, just as he warned Tights and her father, as he coolly tells them they're safe with him here, and then he declares Bruce Chun is under arrest, if that's even his real name. The room goes silent, before Bardock responds with an aloof, sure, before turning to ask Bruce if he already had a pot of coffee ready, to which the old scientist without missing a beat confirms he does, moving over to the coffee station with Bardock to fix a cup for himself, as he respectfully inquires a bit more into his new revealed alien nature out of curiosity. While seeing he isn't being taken seriously, Jocko petulantly insists that Bardock has made several serious galactic offenses, and really does need to come quietly before things get bad for him. However, here, Bardock doesn't get angry, threaten, or shout. He simply reasons with Jocko to think this through. He may not really be Bruce Chun, but he is ex-Frieza Force, and on top of that, he's also no slouch, meaning if the Galactic Boy Scouts really want to take him alive, he'd need some serious backup. But if he caused that kind of ruckus, then it's likely the person he's actually hiding from would catch wind of the Earth and make way to annex it, and at which point, he'd no longer have any reason to be gentle with the Galactic Patrol, this planet, or even to stay here. However, Bardock very obviously doesn't want that, and more importantly, his decisions affect way more people than just himself, hence his laying low and playing human. And if he thinks about it, Jocko probably doesn't want either the hassle or danger of actually bringing him in. So the real solution here is actually for him to leave quietly. This is quite shocking, mostly for Jocko, as Tights had indeed tried to warn him this Bruce Chun character was not only reasonable, but also very powerful, before his ego and ambition for a promotion saw him miss out on that part, at which point, he fights a shiver running up his spine at the strictly facts and logic-based warning, asking if anyone has ever told the Saiyan he reminds him of Frieza, a likening Bardock does not take too well at all, insisting Jocko square him quick before he takes him off. While Jocko agrees, but insists that Bardock owes him one for the favor, as he does just that, calling out good luck to Tights on her book, as he makes his way back to his ship and to safety. One afternoon, in a bit of boredom and wanting to indulge in some of his loner tendencies, Granola decides to spend some time with his mother around Grandpa Gohan's house, where on top of her cleaning duties, she's also taken helping the old man out around the house, at least in whatever small ways he may need. Though in fairness, he is still extremely capable for such an old guy, so it's not all that much, but still enough to make her feel like she's doing something productive in her downtime. With the topic of why Granola isn't off playing with the other two boys coming up, Grandpa Gohan offers the two Ceruleans some advice about adapting to life here on Earth, and balancing that with a completely natural desire for privacy, advice that speaks to Granola's choice of isolation when the Shigarians moved on to plan the cereal. While he too very much values his time alone and quiet to think, he's also come to know that being alone can be one of the quietest and most personal hells one can endure. However, even in the face of such hells, it's still important to look to others for help, as it can come from extremely unexpected places, confiding in the two that in a strong way, Bardock and his family were his unexpected help. While Granola admits that if he didn't have Grandpa Monito, the last year and a half would have been a lot harder for him, and so in the end, the three share a cup of tea and some closeness, while Gohan hears of Raditz and Kakarot's naming game, and just for the hell of it, drafts up aliases for his new family members as well, along with a backstory. The tale being spun they're the family's housemaid or his nurse and her son, Shadi and Amu. One morning, instead of waiting for training, Bardock actually gets the boys up himself, stating they're going fishing. Even though tired, Goku and Raditz make their way eagerly out of bed to prepare for this, while Granola is less so, spending a significant amount of time glaring at Bardock from his comfy cocoon on the couch, as he makes a bunch of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for their lunch, which upon seeing, the Cerulean boy fairly petulantly asks what they are, and then cringes with distaste much like Bardock did when answered, which in turn causes him to chuckle and tick Granola off more, since he's not in on the joke. His final decision to go mostly motivated out of it being another chance to shoot Bardock in the back. A few minutes later, the four aliens are making their way back to the fishing spot from last time, and upon reaching it, Goku quickly casts his line with intention of beating Raditz this go round, while the older boy boasts it'll never happen, holding his maturity over his little brother by simply fishing with his tail. Hushing the boys as he casts a line, Bardock surprisingly hands it off to Granola to use instead, before readying another fishing pole for himself, after which, the two wind up sitting closer together, as Granola seems curious about the task, naturally allowing him to question why Bardock dragged them out here if they aren't going to train. But grunting aloofly, Bardock simply responds he wanted another day like this with its own brats, and in all honesty, to get to know him a bit better while at it, as he decides to have one of his sandwiches now, and offers Granola one while at it. Still hesitant, the Cerulean states Miss Guinea was already a surprise, but he really didn't expect Saiyans to know how to cook, though Bardock admits he really doesn't, but has been through some pretty sticky situations where having the skill would have been real helpful. Plus, these PB&J things are tasty, easy to make so he doesn't have to bother Guinea for him when he's hungry, and they can be eaten on the go, so he's got a bit of a newfound love for them. The two also discuss topics like how Granola's been sleeping lately, with Bardock happy to hear that his nightmares have begun to ebb away as well. They discuss how Granola likes Earth and Mount Paozu, getting him to brag about a few things Miss Guinea taught him, and of course they discuss his training as well, and some of the strides he's helped Kakarot and Raditz make in a very short time. But Granola huffs that all the praise in the world won't make him want to be a barbarian's definition of a warrior, doubling down that he wishes to be a hunter, or rather, a killer, in order to get revenge on Alec and Frieza someday. Being careful to make light of the boy's circumstances rather than his dream, Bardock jokes that he's glad to be off the hit list finally, but Granola states he shouldn't be so sure just yet. Still, as the duo speak, Granola finally gets a full dose of Bardock's particular brand of confidence and charisma, as they're certainly stronger than ever, so he more than happily continues to banter with Granola quietly as they wait on a bite, continuing to joke by saying the sniper is about a decade too early for taking him on as a target, let alone Frieza. But perhaps his plan to get the boys a proper martial arts master like Roshi advised him will speed Granola's timeline up. The boys all seem equally intrigued by this in turn. Not long after this fishing trip, Granola also ends up going through the rite of passage that is the Take Your Kid to Work day, with Raditz feeling a particular need to tag along himself for some reason. Here, Granola ends up meeting Bulma in the briefs. However, much to the annoyance of Bardock for the added racket in the workplace, and Bulma for the gall of the two boys as they wind up competing and squabbling fiercely over which of them totally doesn't like an icky girl like Bulma more. This episode ending with Bulma comedically telling Bardock she wants more intense training so she can clobber those two, which Bardock rather gladly agrees to set up for her. Atop the world, on the Sacred Lookout, the Namekians who go by Kami and Monaito continue their fellowship, learning more of each other's past, and their shared history and having both ventured out to discover a new safe haven after Kami is told of the calamity a century ago, that which befell their original homeworld, and how Monaito's group actually wound up able to thrive and live in peace with the Ceruleans over all that time, hence his loyalty to Granola and Muesli as the final members of this race. In turn, Monaito is informed of Kami's somewhat contrasting time here on Earth, and even explains his having split with the corrupted side of himself, who once plunged this world into darkness after being tainted by humanity. This troubles Monaito, but seeing Kami's discomfort with lingering on the topic, they move on to discussions about their creations, or at least Kami's creation and the creation of Monaito's predecessor, with the older Namekian revealing he actually had no way to ensure that Dragon Balls of Planet Zero would follow them after his wish, as he had, after all, only been entrusted with being the orb's guardian the very day of the planet's raid. In other words, he himself did not create them, and was never even shown a model of the dragon to even attempt making any changes to the creature, should he even know how to, or had he even had the time and resources when doing his best to forage for and scrounge around for food for Granola, as the Shigarians began to rebuild and move in, and now he fears what those Dragon Balls could do in the hands of someone malicious like Alec, or someone unwitting like an innocent Shigarian. And as quirky a dragon as Tarumbo is, it's quite a disturbing risk to have in the back of one's mind. Kami, curious and troubled in his own right about this, asks his fellow Namekian to elaborate about this so-called quirky mention. So, Monaito goes into detail on Tarumbo's eccentricity and making up for the great deal of his magic power being hindered by the small amount stored in his wishing orbs, by passing on an immense amount of the costumes to the wisher, and asking them to offer something in return, so to speak, such as their transportation here to the Earth, for example, which he paid for with a few decades of his lifespan. This all troubles Kami even more, from the possibility of people said to be far more barbaric and ruthless than Bardock, to the mere thought of a seemingly rebellious dragon. But, as he considers, he understands the logic behind such a design, as it could discourage overuse and the build of unbalanced energies. In thinking about this, Kami comes up with an idea that could quite possibly relieve Monaito of his worries, and solve an issue which has caused him some anxiety as well, though he warns the idea is a radical one. All of this has become the new status quo of things, as Bardock's clan continue into their second year on the Earth over the next handful of months, having reached some seemingly sustainable harmony for the moment. However, as is always the case, tragedy strikes, and in a shocking turn of events, none other than the Ox King and his daughter show up on Bardock's doorstep, unannounced, and asking for his help. Calming Ox down and clumsily offering them the tea Grandpa Gohan loves, the two discuss the sudden death of Chi-Chi's mom. And now with the change to the timeline already, the Ox King is extremely invested in venturing to have her revived, since Bardock confirmed the Dragon Balls indeed work, as well as technically owes the Monarch one. This gives Bardock an idea, however. Since he still had to get the 6-star and 3-star balls back to Master Roshi and Grandma Paozu, he can maybe also give Kakarot that journey he wanted, and Bulma an opportunity to test her and Pilaf's theory of making a supposed dragon radar to make hunting the plastic things far easier than he experienced, should she get an opportunity to study one of the orbs, that is. After a quick discussion of this plan with the rest of the family, and a call to Capsule Corp, Bardock is happy to get the go-aheads of both Gine, Gohan, Dr. Briefs, and especially Muesli. Though as Bardock and Grandpa Gohan give the newly assembled group the 4-star Dragon Ball to start off with, since it has indeed returned to its Dragon Ball state. However, as they go about doing so, both men, having spent significant time around and holding it, are quite certain the orb was smaller the last time they'd really looked at it. Though the kids don't necessarily question the seeming change from baseball to shot put size, and instead all share some adventurous spirit, with Bulma more so excited for the opportunity to travel the world on her own terms, for really the first time, rather than the act of actually making a wish for herself. While Raditz and Granola are competitively looking at this as a mission to prove themselves over the other end, and Goku of course is simply in it for the journey. Though before they can start that journey off, Chi-Chi chirps up, declaring her resolve to be a part of the mission to bring back her mom, even as the Ox King frets that it's far too dangerous. However, here, Gine offers some comfort, ensuring the boys are all not only well behaved, but also have the strength to protect each other, while Bardock more macho-ly offers that the king isn't much of a slouch in his own right by his estimate, stating he even feels a significant bit stronger than he did at Kakarot's birthday party earlier that year. So if his kid's anything like him, she'll fit right in with this little group of monsters. Goku beams at the praise, while Raditz and Granola attempt to hide how happy this makes them in their own ways, and Bulma asks her sensei to think of a more ladylike way to refer to her strength, but in turn, speaking up as the second oldest and definitely most mature member of the team to keep her eyes on everyone, especially Chi-Chi, as the girl finally gets a nervous nod from her dad before moving to stand with the other youths. And so a new form of the Dragon Team sets off to collect the Dragon Balls and revive Chi-Chi's mother. The journey overall is set to be a whole lot easier than Bardock, due to both the kids having multiple strong party members who can all cover a large amount of ground at once, alongside a prototype Dragon Radar, at least at the point Bulma finishes up her research, meaning already we'd be able to at least see Dragon Ball hunts go like they do much later in the series, a lot sooner in this timeline, as just part of the general power creep that the events so far have caused. However, we still have to go through some growing pains, so even though Grandpa Gohan's 4-star ball is all well and good as a start, having multiple will allow Bulma to calibrate the radar signal to be more accurate. Having heard this tidbit, Bardock decides to be nice and give another leg up for them, but this will be their last one, as he ends up giving the kids directions to Pilaf's castle to start with, suspecting even if the imp hasn't collected any orbs himself yet, he'll certainly have his own plans for something like a radar too, though rather absent-mindedly, he forgets to actively mention this to the group, simply suggesting the capsule they find there will be the best start to their journey they can hope for. With the group being able to travel the world fairly quickly, even with their passengers, they are able to arrive to Pilaf's castle in the desert without issue, leading to a small gag of the imp's new souped-up security system being torn up by the boys, in a misunderstanding, while they make their way inside the Emperor's base. The two sides finally recognizing one another in what is meant to be a tense standoff, though when recognizing these are the children of Bruce Chun, the Pilaf gang become more than welcoming, clearly unwilling to anger their powerful friend. After some discussion, the Dragon Team end up speaking on why they are here, and with some light convincing, they get Pilaf and Bulma to combine their schematics, and end up actually creating the first Dragon Radar as a team. However, as they do so, they make a strange discovery. Even though the signal they should be tracking is that of Earth's set of 7 Dragon Balls, the radar distinctly reads 9. But that is where we'll be leaving this story off for right now. That's 7.5. I tried to do this one a little different, and it's done as multiple small vignettes with the goal of getting in all the small little special interactions in relationships I definitely wanted to have built up rather than speeding through too fast, while also trying to just get in a lot of content at the same time. You know, while doing this one, I realized there's definitely a younger version of me as a writer who would have wrote this story and paid no attention to ideas like how Grandpa Gohan and the civilians get along after they show up and such. And I'm really glad that, you know, I'm at the place where I am now where I do think about those things. This one could have definitely ended up being a lot longer to the point of encompassing the entire second Dragon Ball hunt, but at that point it would probably just need to go ahead and be part 8, and the actual part 8 is going to actually directly move the story forward a good bit. But I will be transparent and say the stuff after that won't really all that much and will kind of feel a bit more like the slice of life stuff, but it will be slice of life stuff meant to set up action set pieces. It will make more sense when we actually get to that point though. So next time we'll finish up the Dragon Ball hunt, start our next arc, and we'll probably have a pretty rough cliffhanger all things considered, so go ahead now and make sure you do all the YouTube stuff such as liking, subscribing, and turning on notifications so you don't miss an upload or anything else I do. Other than that, the usual shoutouts to Mr. Negative and Valerius Vibe for their aid in custom visuals, and of course to the channel supporters, Knuckles0x, Crimson Manifesto, Jelpy, Zach Haji, Pizza15X, Aaron Winters, Normany1998, Shao Pai, Coder SV3, Ronan Charizard, Daniel Smith, Dylan Wolfdog31, Infernate Beast 326, J. Ray, Johnny, Narku, Omar Cousin, Snow Slash Memes and more, Stephen Norton, Taryn, The Shadows, Vegeta What Ifs, Alamancer, B, Lyman Rogers, Omar Muhammad, Aiko, Arcane of the Heart, Tay, Inebriated, John Sullivan, Corporal Atkins, Trent Rouse, Dark Shadows, Pokemon Trainer Cam, River Joy, Elijah Edwards, Mr. Hamtastic, Jesus is King, Half an Onion, Angel Gonzalez, David Spalding, Lil T910, Joseph Lau, Trainer Rad 164, Luca Reynolds, Baron Stormblade, Ono, Chris Macriano, Lily, Simroth, Red Violet, DeAndre, Gerald Smith, John Self, Jacob Whitker, Massive Oak Wood Tree, Demon Set, True Trey, Judge McGee 101, Bruce Boswick, Robert Ostergaard, Illis Cyclops, Craig Scheiman, Jal Madden, King Music FR, Ballcord, Zach Eubanks, Crab, Trooper 4552, NBA Fan, Courtney Hawkins, Orion 101, Christian Kyler, Dominic Wiltz, Justin DeMille, Cyber Samurai, The Storybuster, One Cold Pirate, Ganning 667, Kelstar 159, Dr. Ember, Chris, Novak Daddy, Kieran Lightfoot, Ooga Booga, Kier Skywalker, Andre, Chandler Does What Ifs, Monake Modilla, J. Ron Miller, Indigo Saturn 64, Femi Ugalade, Austin White, Benny Montoya, Scurry, J. Roboza, Gallo Magalan, Jossie, Raheem Williams, Talonwolf, Dead Cheat, Billy Clark, BAD, Mr. Michael Law, O Prosper, Dirk Gooden, Ultra Jester, John, Cody Keene, Brian Daniel, Chicho Earthbound, John, Chris White, John Lee, Emiliano Aruz, Moonshot Media Inc., Jarion, Killer Gorilla 02, Mufasa at 62, Jesse James, Jordan 523, Ben Taylor, Brandon Mitchell, Justin Schaefer, Pie King, Raven Puff Guy, Chris D135, Lichdom, Supergirl Fan, Frank Fredrickson, Robert Young, Red Viking Biker, Jaquan Copeland, and the Cosmonaut. Thank you to this massive group of people for their direct support of the channel. It does so much help the channel out, and if you would like to join their ranks, please consider joining the channel as a member or becoming a Patreon. For as little as $5 a month, you can support the channel directly and get all access to my content, early access stuff, and some super exclusive stuff as well. Also just a really good way to get sneak peeks. Beyond that though, I've rambled enough, so be sure to take care of yourselves and the world around you, and as always, go beyond plus ultra. And I'll see you guys next time.